Once the mind's expanded, I could never return to the man I was. You could never return to the woman you are. So and then when you get Jesus and you begin to operate in power and authority.
You weren't drinking for a week. Like just little tweaks and you feel so much better, but we inevitably go back to those habits because that's what society pushes. I was in medical sales and he was riding with me and he goes, you said you don't believe in God and I have to wonder why, because when I handed my life over to God, everything became so much better, it became so much easier.
All right, guys, well, get ready to be uncomfortable today. I have an amazing guest on the podcast, and I'm super excited to have Godinho. I hope I said it right in the podcast.
Yep.
I always like there's a personal touch. There's a theme of people that I bring on this show. For one, I know the conversation we're going to have is going to elevate the lives of others. But it's really cool because I really leverage the people I meet in my life and connect with that I see God doing amazing things through to get here in this studio. And I got introduced to you through JD and people like him and Daniel and Pastor Colin about Catalyst Wellness. So guys, she actually founded and owns Catalyst Wellness here in La Jolla, California. I go to them, I do all of my wellness work with them, and I've just gotten to know Kat more, and I'm like, oh my God, God is doing something so cool in your life. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're gonna have some fun today. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Let's go.
Are you ready to get uncomfortable?
We're already there. We were already there this year. So yeah, let's keep going.
So we'll just keep going, right?
Just keep making it happen. Yep.
On the other side of discomfort's everything you want in life.
It's growth.
First question what should I ask audience? I know.
Why is my dog so amazing?
Yeah. Oh, wait, we forgot about Zeus. So we got Zeus in the studio. And what's the story with Zeus? Because everywhere I go, you have your dog with you. And your dog's name is the same as my dog's name, which just makes you even cooler. Tell us why you always got Zeus with you.
My husband had to step away January 6th. And so he is my buddy. I mean, I can't leave him at home, right? I go to work 8-9 hours a day. And so now he greets all the patients. He is my support buddy. He's just everywhere with me.
Come on.
He's just my guy. I'm so thankful.
You know, you can
right
trust someone more when they have a dog and a good relationship with their dog and you see how it treats them.
Yeah.
I've always found people that treat their dogs well are just amazing human beings.
Yeah. Well, and counteractive of that, it's like when people are like, oh, I don't like dogs. I'm like, what is wrong?
Yeah. And if my dog doesn't like you, I feel like my dog has that sense I don't have. And I'm like, there's something about you that my dog picked up on.
Yeah. And then I met Dan Fulkerson, and I'm like, he gets to take his dogs everywhere. Why can't I take my pit bull everywhere?
Right.
He's just
you're still a little bigger, but,
I'm just trying to do what he does.
Dan was in the studio today.
He's a phenomenal human being.
He brought Teddy.
Yeah.
We've had 2 dogs in the studio. Never had dog in the studio. I don't know, maybe we have in the other podcasts. And now we've had 2. This is just a record-breaking day for us, guys.
There you go. Yeah, I made him be my friend. I actually followed him on IG, told him he was going to be my friend, then found out my husband actually knew him, and he thought that's why I followed him. So then we became friends.
Wow.
Yeah, I forced him.
Great guy. Yeah. Sometimes you got to do that, build good relationships. Mm-hmm. Cool. So let me ask you this. What do you value most in your life? Like, what's most important to you?
Honestly, the most important thing to me is authenticity. Like being an authentic version of yourself, being genuine, and you can feel that energy in other people.
Yeah.
That is hard to find sometimes.
Yeah, it is. So what does that mean to you? Like when you say someone being authentic, their genuine energy, can we go a little deeper? What does that mean to you?
It's something I try to value in myself, where when I speak to anyone or when I put a word out there that anything I'm saying is truly what I believe. It's not just a facade to, oh, look at me and this is what I'm going to say and this is what I'm going to do. So I try to be truly authentic about my struggles, about who I am. Right now, I'm in the middle of putting content out there, right? I'm not telling you I'm perfect at it. In fact, I struggle at it every single day with anxiety or uncomfort or all these things, but I'm transparent and authentic about it. And so I try to surround myself with the same kinds of people because you're going to grow from that. You're going to learn from each other. And I think coming with authenticity is relationships that form, and people want you around them when you're an authentic person. When you don't care, like growing up, I never cared if you were the CEO or if you were the billionaire or if you were the taxi driver or whatever. I've worked with surgeons my whole life, and your status doesn't matter. It's who you are as a person, right? And so that's how I've always treated people. And then you find the people that are going to treat you the same way. It doesn't matter who you are or what you are or where you are. They want you in their life because you're giving them an authentic version of yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I couldn't agree more. And it's another episode before this, and we were talking about like playing your own game and how like when you understand like who you are and you live your life from a place of not worrying about the general consensus of letting the general consensus of other people influence the way that you speak. I mean, no, everyone's always influencing you, right?
Yes.
Like you go hang around a friend, they have a certain slang word they say, you start picking up on it. So there is levels of that. That's why we got to choose wisely. There's also a level of showing up and just being who you are, not trying to imitate others. That is just so genuine.
Yeah.
In today's world, it's crazy. Like authenticity is a rarity.
It is. It really is, because they'll say one thing and then you find out somewhere else they're saying something else. And it's like, it's hard. It's hard to know who your people are.
Social media makes it worse.
Oh, it's so bad.
And I've been in this space for social media for a while, man. And it's crazy. Like I would teach this social media class and I would talk about authenticity is the new authority. And how like it cuts through the noise. And we would have discussions about this. Guys, don't go rent a Lambo and take pictures in front of it. Like if you drive a beat up Honda, talk about the season you're in your life and how you're really stretching and pushing yourself to be the best. And watch how many more people connect with you there than the fake picture with the Lamborghini.
Yes. Yes. And right now, when it comes to financial, when it comes to that image, it's like, that's the one pet peeve I have is don't represent yourself something you're not. And I don't represent myself as something I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not where I want to be. I'm working towards that image, but I don't represent myself in a way that's like, oh, I have so much and I have this and I have materialistic, like, I don't like being disgenuine like that.
And what's funny is people that actually have it, not saying it, don't care about any of that.
Don't care about any of it.
They really just care about like, it don't matter where you're at in the journey, as long as you're heading in the right direction and your heart's in the right place and you're about what you say, you earn so much more respect in those rooms.
It's true. The ones that have, quote unquote, the wealth, you never know they have that wealth.
Yeah. No. And when people talk like that, they're just like, yeah, you're talking out your butt right now. I've been that guy in my youth, man. I've totally young, trying to prove things and this, that, and you learn, and altruism is a thing, biologically, especially as a man, and our pride and our ego and wanting validation and wanting acceptance, and women too. But as a man, there's such a pressure on you. Like I got to make a lot of money. I could never be 6 feet tall. So that one I couldn't check off. I gotta be in good shape. Right. So there's like all these things that like the status quo you're trying to live up to. And then you finally realize one day it's all BS.
Yeah. But I think you also you realize it. But there's been moments, even up to like 6 months ago, there's been moments where you kind of see yourself getting sucked back in. You're like, wait a minute, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. Like, that's
And that's why you got to have people around you tell you what you need to hear.
Yeah.
That are like, hey, what are you doing here? Like, I got friends like that. If I drift a little too far up, they're like, yo, bro, like, I just saw this video and I just don't feel like that's the Cody I know. And I'm like, oh, and I have to go look. I'm like, wow, we're drifting a little out of bounds here. We got to get back on track.
Yeah.
All right. So that was really good. Authenticity. Thank you for sharing that with us. You talked about anxiety and just overcoming different things in this season of your life. I want to spend some time there. And I want to preface it with this because vulnerability opens up vulnerability. And I know you're going to be vulnerable with us. And I want to actually set the tone with that because I want to say that a lot of people listening to this in their own way have struggled with anxiety and different things. And for me, I'll just say this briefly. I never had felt anxiety or panic attacks or anything like that. But at 21 years old, I started having them like crazy. To the point of where I went to the ER, thought I was having a heart attack 3 times. 3 times I went to the hospital, the EKG, the whole thing. Went through a whole bunch of doctors to look at my heart, spent thousands of dollars to check out my body. The truth was I was just having anxiety. And I was just in this place in my life. It was the scariest moment I've ever been in. And anytime, even to date, when you start to feel that feeling of almost panic come back on, it's such a scary, intimidating feeling. It makes you feel so small and so weak. And it almost like takes the whole world down to that very moment.
It's debilitating.
Debilitating. So I just want to preface with, I think anyone that says they haven't struggled with it in some way is typically not being fully honest, because just about every human I've ever gotten to open up on this subject has had their own level of it. Might have looked different. So that kind of sets the tone. How have you encountered anxiety and fear and overwhelm in your life?
Let's go into this.
Let's go down the rabbit hole.
So I started getting anxiety, or what I knew was of anxiety, at 18. I started like having I think they were panic attacks at the time. And I didn't understand it. Don't understand it. And I went to our primary care doctor, family doctor, and he was like, made me take this little test where it's a yes or no question. And if you got 7 of them yes, then you're depressed anxiety. That was how I discovered I was anxious. And so the first solution to me at 18 years old was, oh, you should get on Zoloft. You should get on an antidepressant. And back then it was it was like the Bill Cosby. You trusted the doctors. They know what they're talking about, right? So there was never a question. My parents didn't question. It's like, okay, I have
And now
anxiety.
all these movies are coming about how all those drug companies, they were selling drugs like crazy and pushing it on us. Anyways, another story, just saying.
Let's go down that rabbit hole. Anyways.
We should. Oh, that's perfect for you. I didn't think we will go down that rabbit hole.
There's so many rabbit holes. Anyways, so they put me on an antidepressant at 18. I was told, oh, you don't produce enough serotonin in your brain. I was told this is completely normal. I was told it was almost like being diabetic. You can't control it and you're born with it. You can stay on these drugs indefinitely. It's not a problem. Come to find out now, all the studies come out, 3 years, your brain becomes dependent on them, right? I tried to get off them when I was starting to do well. I tried to get off 3 different times. And people out there will know, if you've ever experienced antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds, if you've been on them for an elongated period of time, there are side effects when you get off. There are withdrawal symptoms that are horrific. And so every time I got off, it was too difficult and I ended up getting back on. And so I was the person that was like, my brain just doesn't produce enough serotonin. That programming over and over and over, that's what I believed.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
It is debilitating. And so fast forward 22 years and I woke up to what the world is. I think someone kind of gave me the Matrix, like a red pill right before COVID, or kind of when COVID happened.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I woke up to what I believe reality is. And I, thank God for that, because God was not present in my life all this time.
Yeah.
And so I went to my husband. I was in a really good place. And I'm one of those people where when I'm in a really good place, I sit there and go, okay, what can we change that I can be better now? Like what? So at this time I was like, okay, I'm doing great right now. This is a perfect time to try to get off antidepressants, right? And so I go to my husband and I'm like, I'm going to get off of these. I don't want to be dependent on pharmaceutical drugs anymore after 22 years. And I looked at him and said, I don't know what this looks like, because I'd been with him for 4 years. In fact, we were engaged at the time. We weren't even married.
So you guys weren't married yet.
We weren't married yet.
Yeah.
And he goes, babe, I got you. Like, let's go. And so I got off of him, and again, the side effects, it's called brain shivers. Like if you get off of them, and it feels like these instant seconds of your brain gets zapped. Like it feels like someone goes like this to your brain every 30 seconds.
Whoa.
And so after a full day of that, you feel like, I don't know how to relate it, but you feel like you've been wearing your grandma's glasses all day. Like you have a headache, you can't focus, you can't concentrate.
Yeah.
And that lasts for like 6 to 8 weeks. And I had a full-time job. I couldn't just stop. And so we got through that. And then a month goes past and everything just became so hard, like so hard. And you're feeling everything, because what these pills do is kind of numb you to things, right?
Yeah.
And so then I started having panic attacks and started just going down the rabbit hole. And Jason, you said no one out there has never felt not having anxiety, right? Jason, my husband, I don't think he knows what anxiety is. Like he just has a mindset, and I can't wait for you to meet him like no other.
Yeah.
And so he would sit across the table from me almost every night as I would sit here and have panic attacks or freak out, and I would start to tell, you don't understand. Like my brain just doesn't produce enough serotonin. I would just regurgitate the programming that has been in me for 22 years back to him as I was sitting here losing my blank, for lack of a better word, right? And we went through that for like half a year. And then a good friend of mine, Jax, she was more, and I didn't have God at this time, so she was more journaling, universe, energy, meditation, so we went that realm. She's like, you need to meditate. You need to get up in the morning and take a cold shower. You need to tap. I mean, I was doing, at this point, I lean the full opposite direction, and I'm like, give it to me. Like nothing is worse than the way I'm feeling right now. So I will try anything at this point.
Like I'll do whatever to make this pain and misery stop.
So I'm getting up at like 5 a.m. before work. I'm taking cold showers. I'm tapping on my forehead. I'm rubbing. I will allow myself to heal counterclockwise. Like I'm doing every ritual you can possibly imagine doing. And it's like I'm trying to get through it, and nothing is working until, I can't explain it, but like one day I got up and I went to this, just a friend of mine, I saw her, and I kind of just told her everything that was happening, and she just looked at me and she's like, Kat, you don't need to take those. You're fine. You don't need to take them. Because I had my doctor call in the script again. I'm like, I have to get back on. I can't do this anymore. Like I can't live like this. Oh. And I had picked it up that morning, and I took one pill, and it was January 11th, 2021. And I took one pill, and then this random person, she was so amazing. I call her my angel to this day. She was like, you don't need those. You're fine. You don't need to do that. And she gave me a hug, sent me on my way. And it felt like something released in me. And I haven't taken anything since.
Come on.
And it was like just this. So that there's a lot more to it and transitioning, but that led me to God. That journaling, that universal.
I want to know that story.
Yeah,
How'd you find Jesus?
Just going through the experience that I did. And again, there's no worse feeling. Like I can't explain it. If you don't have anxiety to that extent, you can't explain it. And then there's the guilt factor on top of it, because I have an amazing life. I have an amazing man. I have a career. I didn't grow up with like trauma per se, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm very grateful for everything in my life. So why am I feeling like I'm going to die of anxiety and stressing and freaking out about everything to the point where it's debilitating? So then there's a guilt factor of like, I don't know why I feel this way. And I don't even, like, it's horrible, right? Yeah. And so you keep walking this path of like belief and journaling and universe and energy, and spirits start kind of waking you up like that woman, this angel. I can't even explain it. And you just keep seeing these little glimmers of light through all the mess in your head of anxiety. And you just keep leaning into that. And when I kept leaning into that, I had a very negative connotation on religion. I don't know why.
Yeah. Was it derived from your childhood? Did you have a bad experience? Did you see a bad experience? Were you influenced?
I just never understood it. And we only went to church when I was little because my mom liked the Christmas lights and the Christmas songs.
So you guys just went on like holidays?
Yeah, basically. I didn't know much about it. And then I always felt like it was very judgmental. Well, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to have sex before marriage. You're not supposed to. It's like always just telling you, otherwise you're going to go to hell. Otherwise you're going to da-da-da-da. And I never understood it fully, right? And I remember one colleague back in the day, I was in medical sales, and he was riding with me, and he goes, you said you don't believe in God. And I have to wonder why, because when I handed my life over to God, everything became so much better. It became so much easier. And I remember being such a brat, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any. So you're telling me yesterday you didn't hand your life to God and it was hard, and today you just said, okay, God, it's your, and I was so like, you know what I mean? I'm like, well, then tell me. You were
looking at it through a natural lens.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, then tell me why bad things happen. Tell me why, and that football coach had just come out where he had molested all those boys, like, tell me why all this bad stuff happens. Tell me then why the Catholic Church, they did this. Tell me why, like, if God is so good, like, why is he allowing this stuff to happen? I didn't understand these concepts. And he's like, I can't explain that to you. You just have to feel it. And it's funny because I texted this same guy. He reached out to me. This was 10 years ago. He reached out to me probably a month ago and being like, random, how are you? And I'm like, hey, I wanted to let you know I get it.
Whoa.
I get it. Yeah, it was a crazy moment. So anyways, you see that light, you see that glimmer. I remember I lied to Jason, my husband, and I was like, I didn't want to tell anybody I was going to go to church. I just wanted to, for some reason, go and experience it and not have anybody's opinion. Did you feel
something pulling you there?
Yeah, like I just this energy and seeing that light and spirituality, and when you get the glimmer of it, of that feeling where everything's light for even a minute.
You want more of it.
You want more of it. Yeah. And I didn't know where it was coming from. So I went to Balboa, Awaken.
That's first. We both go to the same church. That was the first campus I walked into in San Diego. Changed my life.
Well, so back up, my friend was on the worship team, and she actually took me to Balboa 2 years before, and I saw the Easter.
Oh, you saw Twisted?
No, Easter.
Hero.
I saw a Hero. She took me to Hero, and it was very uncomfortable. And then Pastor Jurgen, no clue who he was, gets up at the end of it, and he goes, if you want to give your life to Jesus, it's the greatest thing you're going to do. Please raise your hand. And I was I was sitting there like so uncomfortable. And he, he's like, bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm like, what is happening right now? I was so uncomfortable. So here I am walking into this church 2 years later by myself. My girlfriend who took me there 2 years before is on stage on worship team.
Wow.
And worship music starts coming on, and I just like bawling. I have my phone, I'm recording her, and I am bawling, and I'm like, oh, it's just because I'm proud of her. It's just because I'm proud of her. Like, that's it. Zeus, can we stop walking around the whole studio? Come here. Sorry. And so I start bawling, and I end up leaving that day, and I go home and tell my husband, and he goes, why didn't you tell me? He like got mad at me. I didn't want your opinion. Because he grew up Catholic. So he had a relationship with God, but he stepped away from Catholicism because he's like, it didn't make sense to me, right? I have my own prayer, I have my own Jesus. I never saw him pray, but he said he had his own relationship. And he's like, it didn't make sense to me because how are you going to give me marriage advice when you can't even get married? How are you going to do, like, it was very ritual, he said, with Catholicism.
That very rigid, very rules.
And so, so then I told him that. And so then JD took me to San Marcos, and I walked into San Marcos with JD. Same thing. Worship music comes on. This church, like, I've never cried more in my life. It's just like bawling, and JD's over here like snickering at me, like just letting me do my thing, and you know, and that started the journey of God, and it was like a tangible shift immediately, tangible shift.
Yeah, and since encountering that, feeling pulled, that going to church, experiencing that and worshiping, you gave your life to Jesus?
I did. I got baptized right before Jason went away.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually changed my snowboarding trip so that I could get baptized.
Come on.
So that he could be there.
And you know, what has your experience been like now from that bratty girl in the car, just doesn't make sense, to going through having to break off, you know, antidepressant medication, to then finding God in your life, becoming a part of a family of God? What has life been like? I mean, I know it's not easy, right? Like, people don't, like, you don't give your life to Jesus and it's sunshines and rainbows. If anything, sometimes it's even harder. But what has this experience been like for you since you've started to walk with him?
I mean, initially it was night and day. Like, it's crazy how when you make that shift, people get removed from your life that you thought were your end all be all. And all of a sudden, like, this divide happens where you're stepping up to another level. And I'm not to say they're not, but it's that whole concept of like, it's up to you. You're going to make the choice and you're going to keep stepping up to this level. And your friends, who you thought were your friends, are either going to be right there with you, or they're going to sit back here and be resentful that you're stepping up to those levels. And someone said it best to me, and they said, Kat, you're a person that always is looking to better yourself in some way, shape, or form. And the people around you are either going to like be pulled by you in that direction, or they're going to be resentful of you, and they're going to make you out to be the villain. Yeah. And that really was that happened immediately when I stepped into God. Like, it was like these people became they just hated me for some reason. And I just kept pouring love and kept doing things, and they're like, just hated me, and they just completely got pulled away. And then the people that stepped in from the community at Awaken, all these people who I were not used to, like, they're all of a sudden like, hey, love you. I'm like, you don't even know me. How do you love me? You know what I mean? Or, hey, you're going to be amazing. You're going to do incredible things. I never had that. Like, I never understood that until I found God. I never understood that community. Because the other people they would say things like I remember I won President's Club, right? Mm-hmm. And I would tell my friends and be like, guess what? I won, like, out of everybody. And the response would be, yeah, well, I didn't. That's you. That's just you. Yeah. You know, it was never, that's incredible. That's amazing, Kat. You should be so proud of yourself. We're proud of you. It was, well, yeah, that's just typical.
Yeah. And I mean, the general consensus, there's a conformity in the world. People, and biologically, we are wired pretty self-serving and selfish. Mm-hmm. And when we give our life to Jesus and we begin to surround ourselves in a community, we start to practice unselfishness because we realize how unselfish Jesus was for us. And I think that there's and you get the Holy Spirit, and you get a renewing of the mind, and you get into the Word, and the Word gets into you, and you begin to operate in that. But the general consensus of the world is like crabs in a bucket. Have you ever heard of crabs in a bucket? So if we took a 5-gallon bucket and we filled it up with crabs, and we would never need to put a lid on it, because every time a crab tries to crawl out of the bucket, the other crabs will claw and pull it back down. Okay. And when you go to change your life, spiritually, definitely, because you get a blessing from God when you're walking in alignment with Him. Holy Spirit speaks to you. You get wisdom like you've never had. You begin to operate in the supernatural, breaking free of the natural. And Also, you have to understand there's spiritual warfare. I mean, there's quite a conversation around that. We do have oppression on our life. Someone out there, Satan, is trying to steal, kill, and destroy us. He is demonically oppressing us from that relationship with Jesus, from that relationship with God. So he also has that on your friends. So when one of you break free, you also have the others who are oppressed reaching back, trying to pull you back to where you were. So that's one thing. But then on a personal development level, if we're all in the same playing field, we grew up together, we're best friends, we're in high school, and one of us starts really going for it, living out your dreams, putting in the action, building the successful business, that person exposes the other people to their own insecurities and makes them self-reflect on what they are doing in their own life. So naturally, to make themselves feel better, crab in a bucket.
Yeah.
They go try to pull you back down.
Yep.
They're not happy when you, but what's crazy is when you're the crab in the bucket that escapes the bucket, you find other crabs that escape their bucket.
So
and then
true.
you're all still trying to go to new levels and you're like, let's go.
Yeah.
Good job. Keep going. And then you get in the spiritual and you learn the power of encouragement and you start to get the gifts of the Spirit, and God will speak through us to one another. I see something on your life. I see what God is doing in your business. You're going to, and that word that you receive, it just continues to compound.
Yeah.
But the natural world, the general consensus, the conformity of our world do not operate in that way. And those of us that break free of it, it's like we do take the red pill. It's like, oh my God, I lived most of my life with that mindset.
Right.
Surrounded by people that think that way. And now you took my blinders off and the world's exposed for what it is. And here's what's really cool. You'll never go back to that.
I know.
Once the mind's expanded, I could never return to the man I was. You could never return to the woman you are.
So true.
And then when you get Jesus and you begin to operate in power and authority, you begin to speak at stuff and say, you're not doing that in my life. God, remove the people that are not serving me to become the woman in your case that you've called me to be. All of a sudden, friendship fails. This person comes out of your life. This person disappears. This person disappears. Loneliness, time in the desert, but then all of a sudden he starts planting. Amazing people around you.
Yeah, no, and I question all the time. I mean, some of the people that have been put in my life, and honestly, this is where I'm new to it, right? Because some individuals that come into my life and they're like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to be in town. Let's go grab dinner. And I'm like, you want to grab dinner? Why? With me? Like these people, you know? And so I have to stop thinking that and just honor it and be like, thank you, God. You know what I mean? Because it's still, I guess, again, this is all new, right? There's so many, and I think this is where my place is, because I hear a lot of our preachers at Awaken who are amazing, but they were brought up in ministry. And so a lot of those friends who even stepped away when I stepped into Awaken are now circling back to me, and they're like, so what's this church about? Or what's it? Because they're seeing me now in this different realm.
They see the fruit in your life.
They see what's going, And so now they're all of a sudden asking and curious about this stuff. And I just tell them what happened to me, and I'm like, listen, I can't do anything to pull you there, because nobody could have done anything to get me there. Like it just happened when it was supposed to happen, and everything came to fruition, you know? And so I just try to be as transparent about it as possible. And keep in mind, my family is so not, like, we had to sit down because my family thinks I've gone crazy and joined a cult. I mean, all the things, right?
Wow, yeah.
And my brother just does not get it. And my brother's at all, it's quite entertaining sometimes. And I just sit down and I'm like, ask me questions. Well, you used to make fun of people like you. And I'm like, yes, I did. What else do you want to know? And they're like, well, what changed? And I'm like, everything just became easier. What? Like, I don't know what to. So you're telling me you can't be successful without God? And I'm like, no, I think there's plenty of people that are successful without God. But I'm telling you, it makes it 10 times easier. It just lifts a weight off of you.
And success without that, in my experience at least, because I kind of come from a rougher background and not like similar to you. I've had to have my own journey to get here. I wasn't raised in ministry, but I also found that like people that are really successful, I'll do in quotations, because what is success actually,
right? They're not happy.
No. Yeah. And there's such a void.
Right.
Man, I have been in some rooms, tens upon tens of millions of dollars, you know, like I won't name drop, but just like almost $100 million. And I've met men, I'm like, I would never trade places with you. You are miserable.
Yeah.
You were divorced multiple times. Yeah. Your kids don't talk to you. You have an alcohol addiction. Who knows what else you're addicted to? Who else is in that closet you're dealing with? And you keep searching for more in the world. If you just said the words and you just confessed and gave your life to Jesus, watch that thing you've been trying to fill with all of that stuff immediately get filled.
Yeah.
And then you operate from a place that's so different.
And I wish I could just click a light switch for them. I wish I could, but again, there's no way. People tried with me so many times.
It kind of is like a light switch.
It is.
And all you're doing is like, there's a light switch there, and you have to hit it. But at any time you're ready, you can flick it.
Yeah. It's what Deion Sanders right now is a big deal out there, right? And he said the same thing. He goes, I had the money, I had the drugs, I had the alcohol, I had the women, I had all of it, and nothing fulfilled me until I found Jesus. And the old cat would have been like, that makes zero sense. And I would have had my logical brain go through why that makes zero sense. And now I'm like, yep.
But it's because human beings are trying to understand and comprehend a supernatural thing in a natural understanding. There's always a disconnect, because if you actually read the Word of God and read the Bible, and you find out in Genesis how God spoke man and everything into existence and breathed life into him, you understand that we have a spirit in us. That like there's a spirit connected with our Creator that lives inside of us. That spirit operates on a different playing field than the body does, than the physical world. Human beings, we try to naturally like understand everything. You cannot understand a spiritual thing because it's a supernatural thing that doesn't operate within the physical existence of the world. So all the scientists, people have tried. You know what people have tried to debunk Jesus? I mean, there's a movie, I wish I could remember the name of it. It's a really good one. He wrote a book. The guy set out to prove that Jesus Christ was a fraud and was a fake. And now he writes books that leads people to Jesus all around the world, because he looked everywhere in every scientific way, all the way down to the crucifixion, the time he traveled the earth, the globe, did all the scientists, all the physicists to prove that Jesus Christ was a hoax. And he could not prove it. And he gave his life to Jesus.
Ironic, huh?
Ironic, huh?
I know. There's no coincidence.
We went down a rabbit hole there. Okay, so
I know.
That was fun.
Where did we go? What were we talking about? Anxiety? We were talking about
we were
anxiety.
talking about anxiety, and we ended up on Jesus. But usually when I have anxiety, I just go to Jesus and you know, and actually I have not had a panic attack. Whoa. I have not had a panic attack until I surrendered fully. At 24, I encountered Jesus at 18 and I gave my life to him, but I still was living in and out of the world from 18 to 24. But I have never had a panic attack, actually. This is my story, since I surrendered. And surrender for me is different than giving your life. So giving your life is like, I acknowledge that the way to heaven is through you, Jesus. Baptism, public declaration. But surrender is like, I was still gripping the steering wheel. Like I gave my life, but you're sitting in the passenger seat, buddy. I'm still driving. And surrender was like, I don't want to drive no more.
Yeah, and I think I'm almost there. I think I'm in a little bit of in between, because
it's okay.
Let's just be honest with you.
So you got like one foot on, like, you know, you're like halfway.
Sometimes the control comes back in and I'm like, stop it. Because I'll be like, okay, what do I need to do? I need to do this and I need to do this. And then I'll stop. No, you don't need to do anything. Just pray. Like, just come over here and do that. No, but you need to do. It's like this internal conflict, especially when Jason stepped away. That rocked my world. So my last.
Do you want to talk about that?
Like, yeah, I mean, what would you like to know?
Yeah, I think through vulnerability we can impact lives. Right? You're walking.
We
through
have a lot in common now.
Yeah. So my dad went to prison when I was 3 months old. As you know, we've gotten to know each other a little bit. And my dad came home from prison a couple months ago. Amazing moment in my life. And we're still walking it, right? It's not easy. You, and I'll let you kind of tell the story, have had to deal with something with that in your own life with your husband.
Yeah.
Share with us kind of what you're walking through and whatever you're comfortable with, as vulnerable as you want to be.
No, I mean, listen, not in a million years, again, this is not in a million years, would I sit here and go, oh yeah, I totally thought I was going to be married to someone and say my husband's in prison. Like, nobody thinks that is ever going to happen. So my husband started a cannabis manufacturing business. He has two stepdaughters. One was on the spectrum, and she became high functioning and verbal on a THC blend, right? A cannabis oil blend. So they wanted to make medical grade cannabis oil. And so they started a business. They did everything they were supposed to do, but they started before they had their permit in hand. So that is, I mean, they did do something unlawful, right? But it is legal what they did in the state, but federally it's illegal.
Yeah.
Cannabis is still illegal, right? So what happened is they started their business. They were told by the government or the state they would have a permit in hand within 6 months. And then they got raided federally by the DEA. And so when the DEA came in, we fought it for 4 years because COVID, so it delayed it somewhat. And we were fighting it. And unfortunately, he got sentenced a year ago in August. And we got in front of the judge and he's like, look, here's all the communication. Here's what we did. Here's what's going on. We did everything legal channels. And the judge goes, no, you didn't. There is no legal channel to do this. He's like, cannabis is illegal. So it's such a disconnect.
Yeah,
between state
there's
and
such a
federal.
flaw in our system right now legally. And
it doesn't make sense. So basically, if you go out, every single dispensary in San Diego that has a business that is selling, technically they're all legal federally.
Right.
And people don't understand that. Like they don't understand the disconnect there. But either way.
It's just not being enforced.
Yes.
On them right now.
Right. Yeah. So the issue is that they started before they had the permit in hand. They shouldn't have done that. Technically that was a choice and he acknowledges that now. So he got 30 months and he was in full faith mode. He was in 100%. It's not happening. God has me. I'm not going in. So there was a little bit of a disconnect because here's logical cat mind, right? Who is like, okay, yeah, God has you. It's not happening. But if it does happen, can you prepare me for what I need to do? No, it's not happening. So there was, it was a hard balance.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to pull him out of that mindset. But at the same time, I'm over here, like, for lack of a better word, flipping out, right? Like, okay, but if this does, so I am just trying to believe too. And I had my 15-year career and I still had my job while we had the business. So inevitably it comes down to it and it happened. And he had to go step and turn himself in January 6th. And I left my 15-year career and stepped in entrepreneurship with 8 employees, not knowing how to do payroll and not really knowing how to do, I've never been, he started the operations of the business and was the operations. And I was more marketing and sales and talking to it and doing that.
Catalyst or the other
Catalyst.
business? Okay.
This is Catalyst.
Okay, so this Catalyst, the business you're
his
running
business is done. Like
Okay, so
they're
that's-
not allowed to do anything because
and going
of everything
through the
that
last
happened.
4 years, all that
Right.
got shut down.
Right.
He started Catalyst and you've had to step in and take the reins
Yeah.
of Catalyst. Wow, I didn't know this.
Like we started it together.
Right.
But I had my when you start a business, it's not like you're making money. So I still have my full-time career. And then when I wasn't working over here, I was helping him over here. And then he had a real estate business that he had on the side. So he was able to do more in office, right?
Yeah.
And more hands-on.
So you guys still had those.
operationally.
You're trying to build the business. It's
Correct.
similar in a lot of entrepreneur journeys.
Right, right. So that's kind of where we're at. So now my husband stepped away and I have my dog and I'm in a new career and a new business. God, a year and a half in, right? So I'm sitting here praying to God, but yeah, that was a tough journey. I mean,
Well, you're running it like a boss.
Yeah,
Even though that you're feeling the adversity, you're feeling the pain, you're getting the scrapes and the bruises that come with it. I can tell you from someone that's been in proximity for the time I have, you're doing it with excellence.
I appreciate that. Well, I've had an incredible community and honestly team, and JD has been.
Man, he's such a powerhouse.
He is. Like every time I have a slight mental breakdown, I call JD and he's like, no, this is how it is. This is what you got to do. I've been doing this for 20 years. And I'm like, okay.
Just keep going. There's stay in the game protocol. And the thing about entrepreneurship, me and JD have talked a little bit about this. All the guys that, especially have been in it for years too, you just got to stay in the game, Kat.
Yeah.
Don't let whatever's going on take you out. Mm-hmm. And if you got to stay in the game protocol, you'll win.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. Times it might not look like you're going to win. You might take some blows. Everybody's got a plan, like Mike Tyson says, so they get punched in the face. That is entrepreneurship every day.
Yeah.
You think you know how your week's going to go till 3 fires pop off that you didn't experience and you're losing your brains and just like, what am I going to do? I have no clue. Mm-hmm. But I just think that the number one thing is self-sabotage is the thing that we have to fight as business owners is how do we keep ourselves in the game without self-sabotaging?
Yeah.
That's, at least for me, I've noticed, like, how do I not ruin this because I'm going through a tough time right now?
And that's hard. That's hard right now because, again, everything is new. And the anxiety is still there. It's not perfect. Just because I found God, just because of all of this, just because I'm doing all the work in it, it's not perfect.
Wait. You
Anxiety.
became a Christian and life's not perfect?
I know. It's shocking.
Wow.
No. I mean, listen, I was having mental breakdowns 3 days ago. So no. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
But you're still in the game.
Still in the game.
You're still pressing in.
Still doing it.
You're still seeking Jesus.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, on the other side of that, you keep doing that, you're going to look back in a couple years and go, wow.
Yeah.
Can't believe I'm here.
And that's what I'm trying to really lean into, because I also don't want to sit here and just work and be like, okay, I just need to get through today. Okay, I just need to get through today. Because I know in 20 years from now, I'm going to look back and be like, God, I wish I was back in that spot because I didn't take advantage of living my life too and enjoying the moment, you know? Because sometimes the anxiety comes on so thick, or the business or things, or all the things that hit you, like we're talking about, and you're just like, okay, I just need to get through this week. But you're not actually living the week. You're just trying to get through the week.
Yeah.
And so it's a conscious moment that I'm just
I think
trying
it's
to press
okay
into myself.
to be there at times. I don't think it's okay to stay there.
Yeah.
I think that it's okay to have a day. Like for me, actually, yesterday, I kind of almost had my own day. Like Esther sees it. There's cycles we go through as business owners, all the pressure, all the responsibility. And I just kind of like, I'll have those mini like freak outs and like, I just need a day.
Right?
Like
the highs and lows of business ownership.
Man.
It's like sometimes last week, 5 things hit me and I'm like, that's it. We're done. Everything's going to be that. It's over. And then
you got to almost step back and just take it. But it's not okay to stay there. So I have a 1-day rule for me, at least. I'm allowed 1 day. I'm allowed to feel sorry for myself. I'm allowed to whine, complain, bitch. I'm allowed to think the world is ending. Mm-hmm. But tomorrow, when I get up, it all stays with yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's a new day. And I will give myself space for 1 day to feel that. And a mentor taught me this. But beyond that, it's on me.
Yeah. Who else says? Fenster says that.
Fenster does say that too. Well, it's so funny. The more you climb up the ladder, you realize we're all just regurgitating the same wisdom anyways. And wisdom is universal.
Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to do right now is I'm putting all this content out, right? And then you have the people that sit there and, oh, you're trying to be an influencer. You're trying to be this. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm trying to just tell my story.
That's the general consensus.
Yes.
The general consensus will always be the crabs in the bucket. Mm-hmm. You got to play your own game. All my life, people have made fun of me for posting videos online, for going for my dreams. Those same people that make fun of you and give input are the ones that are watching everything you're doing, everything you're doing, and second guessing their entire life. Do not listen to the crabs in the bucket.
Right?
You're out of the bucket.
I know.
The crabs in the bucket are yelling over the bucket at you. Go left. Yep. Homie, you're not even out of the bucket. You don't even know what I'm dealing with.
Yeah. And you have so many more. Like I only have a little bit, but it's so fulfilling when one person reaches out and goes, thank you for talking about your anxiety because I would have never guessed. And I'm in the same boat. And what do you do for this?
Keep doing. I see your content and I smile.
Yeah.
Every time. And then there's people like me, I'm championing you. I'm like, let's go, Kat.
I appreciate it.
And dude, people, have you ever realized people farther ahead of you in life, in whatever way, because we're all in our own games in different ways. I don't like comparison. They're never the ones that criticize you.
No.
Ever.
Because you've been there.
Yeah. They're the ones championing you. Mm-hmm. It's always the people, the crabs in the bucket. I'll just keep referring to them as that. They're always the ones that got something to say. I worked at a car dealership before I went full-time in my business. My last job was car salesman. I hated it. And those guys, it was a miserable environment. And I knew I didn't want to be like them. It was a temporary thing. And a season of my life, I had another business that failed and I needed to make money. And I sold my Mercedes and I got along great with the guy and he loved God. And he's actually a great friend of mine. And he's like, you should get a job here. It's like the country club of dealerships. Had a nice office. I made $70,000 a year and I was building my business. All of those guys made fun of me.
Yeah.
And they still to this day make fun of me.
Yeah.
Like he told me he was here for my buddy's wedding. He flew out here. We golfed together. We rode in the same cart. And he's like, anytime your name comes up, those guys are always laughing about you. And at this point, it's so cool because I just laugh I'm like, crabs in a bucket. You know what I mean?
I'm never going to forget that now. Every time I see crabs, I'm going to think of crabs.
Because like they're stuck.
Yeah.
And the truth is they're miserable and they had dreams and they didn't go for them.
Yeah. And you just send them love and you just push them. Like you can do it. That's the worst part is when you truly love somebody and you truly like see the potential in them and they just do the same thing over and over and over and they're expecting different results and you just want to slap them upside the head.
Well, that's the worst is when you want it more for them than they want it for themselves.
Yes.
So that's a whole nother thing.
That's my biggest problem.
You're probably going through that now.
That is my biggest problem with people is like I see the potential in everyone and you can't help everyone. Like they have to make the choice to want to do more.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating sometimes because it's like, come on. And I'll do everything. Like I'll sit there, especially when it comes to wellness, right? Because that's what I've been preaching on. That's like your
arena,
lately.
yeah.
Yes. And I've been preaching on the fact that like, hey, it's not about what you look like. That's not what I'm trying to say. You don't need a six pack. You don't need this. However, there is an aspect of health and wellness in who you are, right? So if you are not happy when you look in the mirror with what you see, honestly, then it's going to translate to every other aspect of your life. I'm sorry. If you wake up and you don't have the confidence in yourself when you look in the mirror or when you put on your clothes or when you just don't feel good, then you're not going to step into that business meeting and present in front of everybody with the most confidence that you have. And that's going to translate. You know what I mean? You're not going to step into a relationship because you're going to be insecure about yourself. So I'm not saying you have to have a six pack. What I'm saying is if you put your health and wellness first and you make the tough choices when it comes to you, right? And the tough choices are, hey, I'm not going to drink that alcohol maybe during the week. I'm not going to go to fast food every single night. I'm going to get up before work, which is uncomfortable, and go to the gym and work out. Yep. When you put yourself first, all of that translates into every other sphere of your life, family, relationships, work, business, whatever it is. And those are the people, those are the 1% that are killing it, right? Yeah. And so I sit there and I pour into people to the point where it's like they are such phenomenal human beings, and that's the one aspect they've let themselves go. And it's like, come on. Like I've bought glass dishes for them so they can meal prep. Like I just start sending stuff to their house. I'm like, come on.
But you know what?
Let's do this.
You can't want it
I
for
know.
them. You can't build that desire for them. What you can do is continue to be the example and elevate belief systems of people around you by the way that you live your life. And what will happen is people will begin to ask you. And it might not be the friend you love that you want that for.
I know.
And don't get me wrong, in a friendship, we should tell each other what we need to hear, not what we want to hear. But we also shouldn't always solicit when somebody's not ready to hear it. So there's this discernment.
Yes.
If they open the window, God, I really want to now you got permission to go in. And it's okay to now in front be like, hey, I love you and I care about you. And I think you should, prioritize your health more if you have that trust bridge built. But then there's also a level where you're like trying to drag them to like live a better life and be more successful and more healthy. But just the way you live your life elevates the beliefs. And when I stopped trying to save everybody, like stop trying to be the superhero, because that was me. Like I'm the guy that's like, I'm going to save everybody. I came from the small farm town, part of my story and all these different people in broken homes and broken families. And I'm like, I'm going to be the hero and I'm going to build a life. I'm going to get out of the bucket and then I'm going to throw the rope back into the other crabs and I'm going to pull all you guys out and I'm going to save you. And I can tell you where I'm at now. That's not how it works. Even if I threw the rope in the bucket and I made it easier to get out, they'd keep pulling each other down.
I know.
And they'll never get out.
I'm so guilty of this. It's so true.
Yeah. So
I just want the best for everybody. Like
But then you find and attract people. I think when there's a desire truly in our heart to get over ourselves, we begin to attract those people, and you make people like friendships with people around you that are like also going for it. None of us are perfect. We all struggle with crap, but it's like you'll attract them.
No, I'm just kidding.
I know, right? Like us struggle with things. Yeah. But that's really good. We kind of went into wellness, and I don't always get wellness people on the show, and I want to spend some time there. You recently went and spoke to Pathfinders, our marketplace ministry through Awaken. That's a pretty big honor and privilege.
It is. I was completely honored.
What'd you speak about?
I spoke about what I just said, like just putting yourself first. Health and wellness should be the pinnacle of who you are, and then everything else should come. Where our society does it second. They do it backwards, right? I'm going to go build my empire, build my success, get my family. Well, I don't need to work. I don't need to do that. I'll come back to that. Once I have everything, then I'll come back to getting myself in shape. That doesn't happen. And then slowly you veer off course. And before you know it, there's such a gap to where you want to be and where you are that you can't, like it's so hard to get back on.
You feel so overwhelmed.
Yeah. And it's almost impossible. And then that negative narrative in your head where you have fed it over and over and over wins, right? It's like, oh, well, I can't get that. I can't do that. I'm not meant for that. I'm going to fail at that. I'm going to do this. And the funny thing is people say to me all the time, and it's so frustrating. They go, it's so easy for you. I'm like, it's not easy for me. I can tell you the most embarrassing. I have driven to the gym, sat in the parking lot for 15 minutes outside the gym on my phone, complaining that I don't have time to actually work out as I play on my phone. Then I've actually gone into the gym, got on the stairs. Then I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Like every 2 seconds telling myself, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to lie. There have been times where it just was not happening. And then I pretended I had a work phone call and I walked out because I didn't want to be embarrassed because people saw that I just walked in. Like, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Every day, my brain tells me, you don't need to do this. You don't need to work out. You don't need to sit in the sauna. You don't need to do that many reps. You don't need to do another circuit. Like, you have to fight that. When you can start with those choices, with those personal choices when it comes to just you, when you can fight back and you start making positive choices in that positive cycle, then those choices, once you get into a business, which you know, stuff is flying at you that are completely out of your control, you can start making the right choices in those situations too. But if you can't even do that with yourself, then how are you going to do that in every other aspect?
Yeah. He's got his head on my foot.
He has to be touching at all times.
It's amazing. The dog's resting his head on my foot right now. He's so cute.
I know.
But back to that, I got distracted by the dog.
He's distracting.
I couldn't agree more, though. I think that we're always fighting. The impolite way of saying it is the inner bitch in us.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that all of us are having to fight that battle every single day. But I couldn't agree more. And you know, that area for me, I've been able to conquer it in a lot of areas. Health has always been the biggest battle. And I'm like not unhealthy, but it's always the one that I'm like, man, you
put it second.
You wrestle with me so much, and it's just like, it's tough. But I think on the other side of those battles and overcoming that voice is everything I want in life, right? I want to show up and be the best version of myself. Well, you're definitely not the best version of yourself if you don't feel good. And we don't even talk about look good, because looks are...
No, it doesn't matter. I'm not, yeah.
But how do I feel the day?
People think it's about being vain. Oh, well, you just want to look at... No, it's not. It's about feeling good.
Yeah.
It's about feeling confident. When you feel good, it's a whole different story. You know that. And you can just sum it up to, like, if you go out, listen, we've all been in college before. I'm sure we've all had fun, and you went and got hammered for the weekend, and you've had fast food, and you do that, and you wake up feeling horrific, right? Or you go, you work out, you drink your water, you eat clean, and you sleep well for like 3 days in a row. I've had so many patients that are like, I don't know what it is, but I got such a good night's sleep and I just feel so good. And I'm like, you weren't drinking for a week. Oh, is that it? Yeah, yes.
That's it, yeah.
it is the alcohol. Like just little tweaks, and you feel so much better, but we inevitably go back to those habits because that's what society pushes. I mean, alcohol truly is the one thing, right, that is horrible for you that people will make fun of you for not doing.
Yeah, I gave up drinking for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I went 3 years with no alcohol, almost 3 years actually. I was a little bit short of 3 years. And I learned a lot through that journey. For one, you're right. And even now, I like started in February having a couple drinks now and then. I broke that.
Once in a while, yeah.
And but I still am like, why?
Yeah.
Like, because what happened with me is I sat down with a piece of paper just the way I am, and I'm like, I wrote all of the negatives of alcohol, and I had like a line. It was like pros and cons, and I was like, if I can come up with one pro, I'll keep drinking. It was New Year's Eve, and I couldn't come up with one thing. There was not one true thing when you dug into it.
Well, some of the cocktails are really good, let's be honest.
So taste, but it's like, could you get a mocktail that tastes just as good?
I don't know, could you?
Yeah, it actually tastes better because alcohol is actually not a good taste. It's acquired taste.
Okay.
So like as I began to dig down and like dissect, like I'd go deep into everything.
You remember when you were little and you would drink like the Long Island iced teas?
Dude, I loved Shirley Temples.
Oh, yeah.
I love Shirley Temple. Now there's a lot of sugar in that. We go down that health route too.
I don't even think it's a real cherry, but yeah, continue.
Yeah, it was probably just a bunch of processed GMO, genetically modified food. But there was not one thing, even when you talk about like the way it makes me feel, it actually is, there's always a cost. So even the temporary feeling of feeling better when you drink alcohol, what it does chemically in the brain creates actually more depression on the backside. So it's like a 10% of feel good up front with a 90% cost ratio on the back, and how it's going to chemically affect my brain. And that's just crazy to me. But when you start drinking, all of these things are addictive. I don't care what and I have an addictive personality.
Well, and we're programmed.
Yeah.
I used to love the show, it was The Good Wife. Remember that show back in the day? It was like about lawyers and all this. Anyways, I would come home and I'd watch the episode of The Good Wife. And in every single episode, she'd come home from a long day. She'd get her beautiful glass out of a wine glass. And then you would watch her pour it. And then I would be watching that. I'm like, oh, I want a glass of wine.
Yeah.
Like, it was like you had to do it. And believe me, I am not perfect at this either. I remember 10 years ago, I could come home and I'd open a bottle of wine, I'd have a glass, and then I'm like, well, second glass. Well, the bottle's already open. I mean, I only have one glass. Like, you know what I mean? It's just habit.
Yeah.
It's just.
And that's the same for me. Even now, like, I've started drinking again. Fine, it's like a Friday night. I have a organic glass of Cabernet, and I'm like, you know what? I'll put a little more in. And it just becomes this, like, and then I recognize it because I've broken free of it. And I'm like, why? And I'm such a weird person with this. I'll go dump the bottle down the sink.
Isn't it weird?
And then like a month later, I'll go buy another one.
I do that with candy.
And it's just like this weird, like, I don't want to do this, but I still do it sometimes. And I know it's not good for me. Yeah. And it's this thing, but.
Or when you go out with friends.
Oh, that's.
When you go out with friends and you're like, no, just water. Why are you being so boring?
So that was the thing on quitting. I had made a declaration to myself. It took me about 6 months. 6 months of continuous to stay strong and show restraint and know to get to a point where that didn't faze me again. And I actually learned how to have just as much, if not more fun, sober than drinking. And people could not understand it. It's almost like their mission. Like when you're the one not drinking in the party, they'll like try to tempt you to get you to drink.
Yeah. And I always say those are not your friends. Like your friends are the ones that when you're like, I'm not drinking, they go, hey, that's amazing. How long are you doing it for? I'm going to do it with you. But that's not what happens.
My buddies that were just here, well, George at least, he did that with me. And my buddy Ben, I quit. And they're like, dude, we love that. We made this whole thing about it called Get Nabbed Out, non-alcoholic beers.
Yeah.
They would buy 6 packs of non-alcoholic beers to hang out with me. They went, I think they went 60 days without drinking alcohol themselves, purely because I was in that journey. And they just were like, dude, we'll come alongside you and do it.
That's phenomenal friends right there.
That was cool.
That's phenomenal friends.
And we actually had more fun getting nabbed out,
Yep.
just empty calories with no alcohol. But it was so much fun.
I choose dessert over empty calories of.
Okay, so back to being the best version of you. We go on rabbit trails here. Kat's fun to talk with.
A lot of rabbit trails.
You know, like what are some practical things we can apply into our life to kind of step into prioritizing our health? I know you have these conversations every day. Like, what should I be focusing on? How do I do that? What do I need to do to get back on track?
I mean, I think the problem is, and I'm guilty of this too, we go 150% in or we are completely off. So you're like, okay, I have to diet. I'm going to eat chicken and broccoli and rice every single day. And I'm just going to drink water and I'm going to go work out. And then you cheat one day and you're like, well, totally messed up. I had a piece of pizza. Might as well eat the entire pizza, right? Or something. You need to find a balance and you need to start small. I have people that come into the clinic every single day and they go, okay, I know that it's a process, but I'm going to Cabo in 3 weeks. Can I lose 20 pounds? No, you cannot lose 20 pounds. Like, how long did it take you to get this way? You know what I mean? So it's just little tweaks. And then the biggest thing is if you don't like it, you're not going to do it, period. But that comes to food, that comes to activity, that comes to all of us. So tweak what you are doing right now to a version that you like.
So make incremental changes.
Yes.
And be consistent with those small incremental.
And be consistent with those small incremental changes. And don't do it all at once. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if you want to lose 20 pounds or whatever and you're not working out at all, okay, so twice a week you're going to go on a 30-minute walk. You know what I mean? And then when you start to see these little changes make a difference, you're going to want more.
Yeah.
And that is just, I guarantee it. I guarantee it. I've talked to so many people. The funny part is that it's just accountability. These people ask me for help and I'm like, okay, like make small changes, and they do it. And then I'll text them and be like, hey, how do you feel today? I make them have a conscious thought about what they did, what choices they made, and how they actually feel. I'm not there. I'm not pushing you to do it. I'm not working out with you. I'm not cooking with you. I'm not telling you not to eat that. I'm like, hey, what did you eat today? Actually, it was really good. I did this, this, and this. Hey, good job. Did you go for a walk? Yeah, I did. How do you feel today? How do you feel at the end of your day? I feel really good about myself. And then the next day, I didn't do well today. I did this. How do you feel? I don't feel good about myself today. Okay. So you would rather feel like you did yesterday. Like having that conscious thought in this society where we're in, especially with social media, especially with everything, we want immediate gratification and we want to be distracted by everything.
Yeah.
Like no one sits with no one sits with their thoughts. No one actually consciously thinks about the choices they're making. And what I said in Pathfinder, and this really hit home for people, I was like, you get your meal and you guys all pray and thank God for your meal. And we all have discernment. Is there ever a time when you pick up that menu and before you even order, you go, thank you, God, for all of this. Can you guide me on what I should order today? Because every time we pick up a menu, think about this. With last time you were at like a Mexican food restaurant, let's choose that. You have the choice of getting like the tostada salad or getting the carne asada burrito in red sauce with the rice and beans. And your brain is like, I'm going to feel so bad if I order this, but this is what I want. I should not get the margarita. But what do? You push that to the side and then you get that.
Yeah.
And honestly, in some ways, that's God being like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Make the better choice and then thank God for the meal.
Amen. So good. Yeah. I love that. I love fajitas. You just got my mind thinking about fajitas.
You haven't eaten today.
Yeah, I'm pretty hungry. Well, I ate a little bit out there, but yeah, that's so good. Well, Kat, I didn't even realize that they just showed me we're at an hour, so we're gonna wrap up here in a little bit. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you just feel like that you want to speak on or share with us that God's kind of been speaking to you in this season?
Let's see. We've covered anxiety. We covered panic attacks. Covered my husband in prison. Covered entrepreneurship. Covered my dog.
Yes.
No, I mean, I just, it's funny. I think that the world right now and where we're at in the world is everyone's having a battle right now. They're having an internal battle because, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but the things that are occurring in our world and that are becoming very evident and put blatantly in our face, I don't feel like have been this way when we were younger. Now, granted, I'm older than you, so we're not going to go there, but I feel like people are having a disconnect right now, which is why it's causing all of the anxiety and all the craziness and all. It's shaking people right now because they're programmed a certain way of how to think about life and world and government and what's safe. And then all of a sudden over here, the things that are being displayed don't align with what they've been taught their whole life. You know what I mean? And so I think the anxiety and everything occurring right now is so high that I always tell some of my friends who don't think like I do. I'm like, look, I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm saying try to think about why you think the way you do. Try to have a conscious thought about why you think the way you do, because 95% of who we are as people, by the time we're 30, are just memorized sets of behaviors and habits that they learn when they're young, right? Yeah. And so you grow up thinking you know and you understand, and this is how it's supposed to be, and this is why I believe this. And like my friend one time said, church and what did she say? Church and government should not be like included in each other, should not have anything to do with each other. And I said, why do you think that way? Like, why? And 2 days later, she comes back and goes, I don't know why I think that way. And so I told her, I said, I just encourage you, if you have a strong belief about something, to take a step back and just say, why do I think this way? Do I actually believe this, or has this been ingrained in me from so long ago?
So many people say and believe things that they just heard someone else say and believe.
And they've never actually researched it. They've never done it. And so I was with my niece the other day, who's 16 years old, and she asked my opinion on something. And I looked at her and said, listen, I'm going to preface this. Anything you ask me, I'm always going to be honest with you about my opinion and what I think of it based on what I've researched and what I've looked up. But that's not fact. That's what I think. And I told her, I said, what you need to do is you need to research your opinion on it. You need to figure out what you believe on it. Because your mom says it, because your dad says it, because your teacher says it, because I say it, does not make it
do your own
what
research.
It is. And so even, especially when it comes to religion, especially when it comes to all this stuff, and she's having anxiety and stress, and I'm like, just because I found God, I'm not telling you, and I'm not saying that's the answer for you. I'm saying go experience and research and figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's my biggest message right now is like people need to just have a conscious thought about what's going on and what they truly believe versus watching the programming that's occurring in front of them, social media, news, all the things. And then they go out there and they're like, oh, I'm not going to do this because of this. And this is what's happening. Is that what's happening, or is that what you're programmed with?
So good. So good. Yeah. I think that we're always being influenced. And today it's more prevalent than it's ever been with the technology and advancements we have. I don't know if this time is more extreme than in the past, or if we just have more awareness of it, or if it's always been going on. You know, in the 29 years I've been here, I don't think we've ever had the exposure we have through technology right now to current events. So I think there's also a level of that. And man, Satan's like, hey, if I can't get you to sin, I'll just distract you. I'll keep you busy. Yeah. So I think there's a level of that, but that's so powerful of like, there's even me at times, like I'll have to catch myself and, man, why do I believe this? Why do I say this? Like kind of going down that, doing my own research of figuring that out. And what happens is you start realizing there's all these things that we do and say and believe that we have no clue.
That we've been programmed. And it aligns with everything in my life right now. The wellness clinic. You know how many people come in and go, oh, you shouldn't do home runs. Those are bad for you because I did it. Okay, where did you hear that? You know what I mean? You shouldn't own a pit bull. Those are the worst dogs ever. You know what I mean?
Where did you get that from?
Where did you get that from?
I heard that.
Oh, you shouldn't do that. Like so many things in my, anxiety. No, antidepressants are the key. Like I was told that God is a crutch. And I was told this by someone who's been on antidepressants for 35 years. And I'm like, okay, I'm not judging you. There is a place for medication at times, but I would rather have my crutches in God than have to rely on pharmaceutical meds, you know? So there's everything that I'm seeing now in life, it's like, oh, I grew up thinking this. And now all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute.
Even this podcast, right? Like people consume this content and we're sharing our opinions and our thoughts and our beliefs and our ideas and our habits and our strategies and our tactics. But they should take this and go do their own research.
100%.
And kind of develop their own beliefs. And I even think it's okay for each of us to take something, go do our own research, and the perspective of it to be slightly different. Because I believe that's why the word talks about iron sharpening iron.
Totally.
There is a story of a king, I think it was King Tut, like Madagascar or something, and just go with it on this, even if I'm butchering it a little. This king, he called and he said, I want you to bring the 3 most wisest men up to my temple. And so they went out and they got the 3 wisest men, and he blindfolded all of them. And he brought forth an elephant, and he said, I want you wise men to walk up to this elephant and tell me what it is. And one man walked up to the tail, and he grabbed the elephant's tail. And he said, well, it's, your highness, it's a rope, of course. And the other one walked up and grabbed its big ear and said, it's a fan, because they had those big fans back there. And the other one walked up and grabbed the elephant's big, strong leg and was like, it's a pillar. And he said, now take your blindfold off. And he was making a point. Were any of them right or wrong? Perspective. So it's an interesting thing as I hear things from people. I also remember that maybe you just touched the elephant with a different perspective than I did.
No, it's great.
But your perspective gives me more perspective on my perspective. I thought it was a pillar. You thought it was a rope. He thought it was a fan. Neither of us were wrong based on what the data that we had to run through our mind to come up with a conclusion. But, so it's an interesting thing. If human beings just took the pause and the restraint to go form their own belief and know why. And
respect the other people for theirs. Yeah. I respect, you have a different opinion. Okay. I would love to sit down and have an educated conversation about it.
Yeah.
And then if we don't agree, that was a great conversation.
Yeah.
But we don't do that.
No. Especially today, there is an agenda. This is an opinion of turning us on one another. If we're so busy arguing about Israel and Hamas or Republican and Democrat or this or that, our attention is so turned away, and it gives freedom for others to do whatever they want, because we're just constantly arguing with one another.
There's a lot of rabbit holes we could go
Yeah,
to.
we could.
Yeah.
Well, this was good, Kat. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Maybe we'll have you back too, and probably going to have to go even deeper into some stuff. But I love what God is doing in your life.
I appreciate it.
I love the example that you're setting, and keep stepping out and playing your own game. Stay in the game protocol. Stay in the game long enough to win. You're walking through a hard thing with Jason, but
I'll bring him now.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. We'll get the full circle.
Yeah.
When Jason, and that's coming up sooner than you think.
Yeah.
God will open doors for that.
One step at a time. Yeah. I can't think of the big picture, just one step.
That's okay. That's okay. Sometimes we just focus on the next step.
Exactly.
Anything else you want to share with us?
No, this has been phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for letting my dog sleep on your foot nonstop.
Honestly, I only invited you in the studio for this.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
This one is Zeus to come hang out.
He's the greatest dog ever.
Aw, he was sleeping.
I know.
Now he's stretching.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. And just to end on what Kat said there, I really encourage you guys even to take what you hear from me and other people and different content you're consuming and start to question the reason that you believe in things, to do your own research, to dig deep on why you say things you say, why you do things you do, why you believe things you believe. I think that was such a word of encouragement even for me.
Yeah.
So good. Go make today great, guys.